Joining us today is Mr. Sanjay Purohit, a visionary leader with over 30 years of experience driving large-scale change. As the CEO of the Center for Exponential Change, he's been working with pioneering societal thinking, a framework to solve global challenges like climate action, education, and healthcare with speed and sustainability. He's worked with 500 plus changemakers across 20 countries and co-founded Apurva.ai to harness AI for collective wisdom. He's also advises organizations on human-centered design and impact investing. Mr. Purohit, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Kirab. So good to be with you.
You spent years developing and championing societal thinking. What inspired you to take this approach, and how does it challenge traditional methods of problem solving?
Societal thinking was born of the question that the challenges that we are facing are not linear in nature, they are exponential in nature, whether it's climate action, whether it's the challenges to do with how healthcare needs to be addressed, education, livelihoods. These are all challenges that are not linear, that they multiply over time because they are driven by large society networks. And so, if you have to address exponential challenges, then we have to find an exponential response. And that response needs a new way to think. And so, that way to think was the quest. And that led us to explore some of the very large scale transformations that we were observing in India, whether it was because of identity and the Harper project, or whether it was UPI and the payments project, whether it was the work that was happening in education with the Diksha project. So we started abstracting lessons and underlying design principles, which led to the creation of the model of thinking, which we call as societal thinking. Like you have design thinking, which is human centered design, or systems thinking, which is system oriented design. Societal thinking came through as a society oriented design. How do you design for all of the society and use a structured way to improve the agency, dignity, and choice of people, leveraging networks, technology, ecosystems of innovation to be able to take on some of our most difficult development challenges.
It's a very powerful change and initiative that you took. Many large-scale social initiatives struggle to sustain impact over time. How does societal thinking help change makers build solutions that last and continue to evolve?
So, the way we have been imagining this is that for a change to last over a long period of time in a sustainable way, we have to see what changes the society's ability to change. So that's what led us to this question of exponential change as change that creates more change. Now, what does that mean practically? So, for example, if one is working in education or healthcare, then the people in the society, their ability to improve the education system and the healthcare system needs to improve. So, what is the way to do that? How do you reduce the friction? How do you diffuse knowledge? How do you improve capability and capacity? How do you make it easier for people to work with each other? How do you align incentives, policies? And how do you do that in a thoughtful way? So the way we have been working with this idea is to take area of change that we want to drive and then work with a large ecosystem of government actors, not-for-profit actors, private society actors, and work with them as a collective, as a network, as a system, and orchestrate that system to bring all the dots together and improve the ability of all the actors to work with each other and improve their ability to exercise their own abilities in a more substantial way. And usually it's very effective if you're dealing with very large and complex system, because if you look at, say, education in India, we are talking about more than 10 million teachers. And so how do you build a system that can work at that scale? Or if you look at agriculture in some of the African countries, we're talking of millions of farmers that need to be brought into this ecosystem of driving change. Or if you look at healthcare in the Latin American countries, it's again a very large number of healthcare professionals and workers that need to orchestrate and coordinate. So the whole idea has been if you want to sustain large scale change, then you have to improve the system's ability to make and sustain change. And how do you do that? By improving interactions between people, by using technology, by ensuring that you have the right policy and the incentive structures, by ensuring that the capital flows in the right direction, the knowledge diffuses in the right way, and that's the quest that we have been on.
You touched on technology as a very important factor to evolve societal change. You're also the co-founder of Apurva.ai. How does it harness AI to empower communities? And can you explain what is this in the first place and what role do you see AI playing, especially in the India-US collaboration?
Apurva.ai was born with a very simple question. The question was, how do we leverage and learn from the wisdom of the people? And so it's important for us to think about what is the role of AI and AI empowered mechanisms to be able to not only curate and synthesize its intelligence based on the knowledge that has been historically produced, which exists on the internet or exists in different knowledge repositories, but essentially do it on a ongoing basis by listening and connecting with people. And so, how are the people in rural parts of our countries dealing with issues, or what do you do with the knowledge that exists with the farmers, or how do you ensure that the healthcare workers' knowledge in remote areas of countries are factored into the way we drive change? So to do that, we created Apurva. Apurva essentially means the one who brings out the wisdom, and so we started looking at creating the tools required to listen to people. When I use the term listen, I don't mean it as a broad word listen, but actually listen, which is audio, right? To people talking in their own languages about their experiences, about how they're dealing with challenges and what kind of situations that they're working with. And then using that voice and that ability of people to express their both situation and desires, and what are they looking forward to, and then using that, and then using different kinds of AI technologies to synthesize and derive knowledge for three reasons. One is give that knowledge back to people, so that they can learn from each other as a community. Second is to make sense on where should we be directing attention, where should we be actually focusing our energies to make improvements in people's lives. And thirdly is to understand if things are changing, because all the time we keep on trying to make a change, but and try to measure and understand what is the impact of all the work that we're doing. But the real work is if people's lives change. And the best way to find if people's lives are changing is by listening to people. And so it's built on that premise. And today, technologies have evolved substantially and continue to evolve at an exponential speed, very, very, very rapidly. And that is because the way technology always has evolved over the last many, many centuries is that in the early days, it is still early and steady and growing, and then it starts to multiply. And that's happening today in the AI world, as you would see around you. And so the ability to do this has improved substantially in the last few years. And so we have been working with this question saying, why don't we think about using AI not as the next interesting thing of curiosity or the next interesting thing of automating jobs in developed economical sectors of our countries, but essentially look at how can it be used to improve the lives of the most vulnerable and marginalized populations. And because of that, we started looking at use cases. So the word that we index on is use cases. What are the challenges that our people are actually struggling with, and how can AI then help understand that by listening to them, work upon it in collaboration with them, and then understand if the actions that we are taking, the changes that we are making, the initiatives that we are implementing, are they really having an impact? And I think that is the real, I would say, I will use the term effective social and human application of AI, which essentially is to see how can it improve millions of lives, because now we are able to understand and interact with millions of people in a much more intelligent and thoughtful way.
That's great. Given your experience across global development sectors, where do you see the biggest opportunities especially for emerging economies like India and developed economies like the United States to co-create scalable solutions?
I think United States has always been at the forefront of making innovations into some of the best um, digital general purpose technologies that we have seen. If you go back in the history of the world, if you think about where did the GPS come from, the global positioning system, which today is so transformational in how development is driven across all the different countries, it came from the United States. This was the investment that was made into building this public infrastructure made open and available. And this digital public infrastructure has been so transformative. If you look at the internet, where did the internet take roots and come into being? It again happened as a huge initiative of the United States government and the private sector ecosystems to be able to bring the internet to life. And today the world is very different because of the internet. Even if you look at some of the advancements that have happened in AI or now happening in different kinds of fields of technology. And so I think there is this massive uh, innovation engine that's operating to find better and better ways to build technology that is transformative for human life. And on the other side, if you look at countries such as India or even the other global South countries in Latin America or Africa or the Southeast Asian countries, they essentially are fundamentally very, very good and foundational in terms of the use cases of these technologies for large scale development. So, whether we look at healthcare, whether we look at challenges of how do you drive climate adaptation or access to education or improving people's jobs and lives and livelihoods, there are so many use cases. So, I think a very important evolution of innovation technology, when it is coupled with use cases that can transform millions of lives, I think makes a very, very powerful combination to be able to build a better world and to build a better tomorrow. And so I think that cooperation between the US and India in terms of looking at these technologies and working together to take on some of the most challenging use cases and finding ways and means of leveraging technology and their emerging capabilities to solve these challenges is phenomenal because applying the technologies that are innovated in the US to very large scale landscapes is only feasible by taking on certain challenges like this, because India is a country of 1.4 billion people. And so the kind of use cases it presents, whether it is in commerce, whether it is in transportation, whether it is in healthcare, whether it is in building industries, is just so massive. And any innovation powerhouse, when it meets a massive use case ecosystem, that only makes things better for both, because utilization and use of innovation to drive that change then improves the technology, when then leads to better utilization and better improvement in lives, sets off like a virtuous cycle, right? So it's like utilization improves the technology, which improves the utilization, which improves the technology. So I think it's an amazing opportunity for these two national ecosystems to work together and solve and develop the society in a very different way in the years to come.
Your Think Scale, Think Speed, and Think Sustain framework provides a roadmap for impact-driven leadership. What lessons can changemakers take from this approach?
These three books, Think Scale, Think Speed, and Think Sustain, came because we realized that the way to think about a different future is to provoke ourselves in how we think about these subjects of scale, speed, and sustainability. These words are often used in the development sector very commonly, but how they're interpreted, how they're processed, and how they're understood are not necessarily giving us the desired momentum in the direction of what they intend to, which is scale, which is let's need to develop things fast. We need to ensure that they stick around and they sustain over time. And so we started thinking about what are the underlying design principles that we are observing in such large countries such as India or Brazil or South Africa, Kenya. I could keep going on in the list, and to understand how should we rethink these words. That's why they use the word think. And then we said how to think of scale. What does it mean to solve the problem for millions of people in an ecosystem networked way? What does it take to orchestrate different actors of government, civil society, private sector to come together and take on these challenges and solve them with speed? Or what does it mean to sustain and drive the change in such a way that it sticks, that it does not kind of fall apart, or as soon as the actors withdraw or the financial conditions change. And so that led us to create these provocations, these books. These books are not theses. They're not designed to be massive treatise on thinking about scale, speed, and sustainability, but they are built as provocations so that if we will learn how to shift our mindsets, if we learn how to think, if we learn how to imagine a different possibility, given the resources and the tools now we have at our hand because of the way innovation is progressing and technology is progressing, then we will be able to solve the problems in a different way. And so that has been the endeavor in these books. I hope you've read them or at least glanced through them. They are easy to read, they are not difficult. They are pretty simple, but they are provocative. They are triggers to help us pause and saying, okay, how will we do this so that it improve millions of lives? How will we do this so that we can get it done in a reasonable period of time? How will we do it so that the change that we create is going to stay around, even if some of the forces and some of the initiatives that create the change are withdrawn? And that has been the effort. And I think we need to think like that in any significant social challenges that we are trying to solve in any country, because in the end, all countries have the same objective, which is to improve the lives and livelihoods and for the betterment of all the people in an equitable and just way. And so I think that's the reason for putting these together, and it has been a journey of learning in doing that as well.
Finally, looking ahead, what is one transformative idea that India and the United States should work on together to shape the next decade of societal progress?
I think it's very clear that technology is diffusing into our lives at unprecedented velocity in both the countries. And we have a unique opportunity to ensure that it is aimed at including and reducing the inequities that we see in our respective societies. There are a lot of lessons that you learn when you work in a very large economy like India that could be of useful learning and potential for innovation when the change leaders in India are trying to build a better ecosystem in the US. And likewise, the way innovation is evolving and the innovation is diffusing so rapidly, that is very useful for the way in a transformation and change is being driven in India. So I think the huge opportunity for collaboration is to create these learning bridges, to create these intersections so that we all are able to exchange knowledge, exchange technology in an open way by creating more and more public goods that can be shared between the countries. Use cases that are built in one country can be utilized in the other countries. Innovations that are created in one country can be utilized in the other country. Because there's so much more that we can do if we build these bridges of knowledge, bridges of exchange of technologies and processes, bridges of exchange of experiences, of successes and of failures. And so I'm hoping that taking on the agenda of improving the lives of the people and the planet, we are able to build such ecosystems of connection, which is aimed at leveraging all the advancements that are happening in the world today to better humankind and to be able to build a better planet and to make it more sustainable for the many, many generations to come.